I don't know how we've stumbled across the way we are as a business, but I feel very fortunate and very blessed to be part of the agricultural industry. I love it, and I can't get my fill of agriculture.
Walking home late at night, maybe 2:30. A little drunk, but I'm alright, 'cause I've been hanging with you, and it feels like love. Tell me if I'm wrong, 'cause it feels like love. Yeah, it feels like love. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Don't know what you do, but you make me feel fine. And you can't deny we are not just killing time. You should let me know if you want this true. Baby, you just make me feel crazy. A little crazy for you. Yeah.
Hi, yeah, I'm Pete Burbage. I farm in Northamptonshire at Oakfields Farm with my brother Richard. And we are agricultural contractors and farmers. We started the business in 1991 with one tractor, and today we farm 1,100 acres at home, a beef finishing suckler herd with finishing all progeny, and we now run a 120 cow milking herd.
Yeah, on the contracting, we run a self-propelled forager, so most aspects of chopping, baling, silage.
Yeah, we chop between 6,000 and 10,000 acres of grass. We run 5 square balers. We would bale up to 50,000 bales of straw and hay a year. We run 2 round balers. We bale 15 to 20,000 bales of silage a year. So alongside the contracting side of things, we farm. We run 300 suckler cows, finishing all calves on the farm, and for bull beef and finishing heifers.
Autumn calving at the moment is the lion's share. We would be around about 250 cows, the spring about 50. But we're just swapping that around a little bit to match the dairy. So we'll go about 50-50 on the autumn and spring calvers, so about 150 on each. And then that will match the dairy, which is 120 cows, so 60 spring calving and 60 autumn calving. The reason we're doing that is to try and match our workload and give us a split of fattening animals through the year. Everything on farm gets fattened on farm, either as a bull, a steer, or obviously as a heifer. We would be very passionate about grass growth. We rotationally graze most of our animals and then try and make as good a quality forage as we possibly can to feed them.
Yeah, our focus, as Richard said, was on grass grazing. We'd grow 10,000 kilos of grass per hectare. We would plate meter loosely. We measure. Our philosophy, if you don't measure, how do you know? As Rich said, the male bulls are finished as entire between 12 and 14 months. Our target weight is around 700 kilos live weight, 400 kilos dead weight. Our predominant grades would be R pluses and U's. We're a Solaire herd with a terminal sire of a Chevrolet. We started a dairy herd 12 months ago, and a completely robotic automated herd. We felt that that would fit into our farming system very well, with the beef and the dairy running side by side. Alongside those two enterprises, we run a small scale AD plant, 125 kilowatts. The dairy was primarily put in place to run alongside the beef, and we complement the AD unit, feeding predominantly farmyard manure and slurries.
At the moment we run scrape passageways, where we would scrape out every day in the winter with the sucklers, and then we'd put the muck into the AD to produce electricity. During the summer months when the cattle are out, that's a source that runs dry, so we're just feeding on grass, rye or maize. But now with the dairy herd, it gives us access to slurry all year round that goes into the AD plant, produces electricity, which then runs the feeding robots, the scraping robots and the milking robots.
Yeah, in 2021 we needed to replace our feeder wagon. We looked at a 22 cube mixer wagon and to replace our old 13 cubic metre one. At the time we were looking at the feasibility of the dairy, and we did a feasibility on feeding with robots, and we sort of looked into it pretty heavily, and we discussed it in quite depth, didn't we, just regarding whether we could justify it or not. And truthfully it came out pretty much on par, and we felt that the robotic system would offer us a lot more than a manual feeding system.
Initially it came out the robots were so much better, and we did the classic farmer. We cut our fuel use back thinking that maybe we've over-egged that. We cut our labour back, thinking, well, we're on farm anyway, maybe we can make that work. And the robotic system, worst case scenario, came out even on the feeder, buying a feeder wagon and running the feeder wagon. But yeah, since putting it in, it's given us so many more benefits, not just the fact that it's cheaper to run. With us producing our own electricity, we shielded ourselves from all the electric spikes over the last couple of years, but it's just given us so much more. There's no competition for space at the feed fence. We've got better mix quality, and one of the reasons we looked at going to a bigger feeder wagon was so that we could generically feed more cows, just to save time and labour. But actually it's the worst thing we could possibly do. We want to be feeding more specific diets. We've got wet cows that have calved, we've got dry cows, we've got young breeding heifers, we've got young fattening heifers, we've got heavy fat bulls, light fat bulls, steers, and so the robotic system has allowed us to feed every single one of those animals individually to its nutrient requirement, whereas if we'd have gone to a feeder wagon, we'd have fed generically and potentially lost out on feed weights. Yeah, just lots of things. Stocking density, we've kept more animals this time, just because of the nature of where we are. We haven't got the sheds up yet, but we've got away with it because having the robot feeding 24 hours a day, there's not that rush to the feed fence. I think the dairy cows have really been a good example of that. Because we've been building as we've had the cows in the shed, we only managed to feed down one side, which gave us, I think, 76 feed spaces for 100 cows, but there's never crowding at the feed fence because the robots are there constantly delivering fresh food.
I think the robotic system, it does exactly what the cows want rather than what we would fit.
100%.
People generally would fit a feeding system around their lifestyle. A robotic system fits the feeding system around the cows. So if the cow's got a bit of feed left over overnight, we would feed on top of that if you're in to feed in the morning, whereas a robot doesn't do that. It scans the height of the feed and it pushes up accordingly, and then it only replenishes that feed when the stocks are down. We set the parameters of that. So if we want an animal to clear the feed fence, we do. If we don't, if we never want them to run out of feed, we set that parameter too. So for us, it's allowed us to farm in a professional manner as well as having other business interests that we can give our time and energy and effort to.
Again, another example of that is when we've got the tail end of our bulls normally going in sort of March, April when the contracting gets busier, so they would get the least amount of attention. We'd have to come home at night from a busy day, hook a feeder wagon up, do a mix, and if we're down to sort of 15, 20 animals in a yard, we're going to make a bigger mix, so it's potentially going to be out for longer, so it maybe warm up, we wouldn't be getting the best of it. Whereas now, when we're out of the yard, the robot is still constantly checking those cows. We're in full control over it. And we can do all of that from our phone, from a tractor seat if we need to. Just on the suckler side of things as well, on our breeding program, we try and breed all of our own replacements. We use sex semen on our heifers on a sync program. And as a scrutiny for our breeding animals, we would check for temperament. We'd be running them through the crush, looking for the mobility side of things. We pelvic score everything so that we have an animal that gives us as little trouble as we possibly can. The whole principle of everything that we do is we try and make things simple. We don't want to create problems for ourselves. We want a system that to a degree manages itself.
It's an easy care system. We're looking for a cow that looks after herself, that produces a calf every year without a lot of intervention from us. We calve 300 cows in a year. We would not calve more than 2% of the animals on the farm, and because of that, we sort of, with the like Richard says, the pelvic score, and we don't worry about what bull we put on them. We more focus on the cow as an easy calving cow and a good mother and easy to manage as a business.
We've definitely noticed that as well from the amount of cows that we would have calved 10 years ago and the problems we would have had in comparison to now.
Yeah. Calving a cow now is out of the ordinary, not the ordinary.
I think the exciting thing about that as well is on the dairy, we've obviously got immediate access to colostrum. We've got a freezer full of colostrum now of excess. We know the quality of it, and if we have a drama on the suckler side of things, we can get the colostrum from there, guarantee the intakes, or even on the other side of it, if we've got a cow that we need to get rid of for any reason, once she's calved, we can put the calf in the rearing unit, it doesn't become a problem to us, and we can cull the cow. So just from a management point of view, the dairy works really well with the sucklers. But I think the whole farm
I would describe the business as a circular business.
Absolutely.
We're in every part of the circle, whether it's feeding silage, making silage, spreading muck, growing grass, producing beef, producing dairy. Now we're in this complete circular business that we control. And for us, it's changed the dynamics of our business. and it's allowed the contracting to ride out the peaks and troughs of the contracting. So for us, it's worked really well, yeah. Yeah, so
Yes.
to be fair, I think we stumbled across a good herd of cows, and I will say stumbled across because we knew what we were aiming for. We possibly didn't know how to get it. But yeah, we've got a 4-way cross. We've got Montbellier, British Frisian, British Holstein, Norwegian Reds. And we've got this cross. We've done our first year of trading.
We wanted something. Obviously, we're looking for milk production. You know, that's what we're doing. We're milking cows, but we also wanted something that would potentially give us an animal that would fatten in the yards. We wanted longevity from our cows rather than keep chasing replacements all the while. An animal that stays in the herd for a long period of time, which we know from the sucklers is where our profit comes into it. You know, just doing the costings on that, it takes us realistically until year 5 of that animal's life when she's cleared all of her debt and she really kicks on and starts to make us money. So we use the same ethos in the dairy. The 4-way cross we think will give us that. The herd, as Pete said, we tapped into has got, I think, or has had the most 100-ton cows in Europe. They've also won the Gold Cup with milk production. So they've been at every angle. They're not purists on one side or the other.
Yeah, the robotics for us as a business has allowed us to manage the cows at a professional level without us putting huge amounts of hours into it because we have other business interests. So it's allowed us to have a standard that's good enough and acceptable to be a profitable business in today's modern world, but also allowed us free time to go and do other interests, have other time to do other interests in the business. And yeah, it's definitely, it's worked so well for us.
I think that's where you'd say Lely have come into it so well as well, because there's certain things on the training that I think we perhaps could have done more, but we're very guilty of hitting the ground running and we want to do what we're doing. But a testament to Lely, the fact that we've managed that over the last 12 months with everything else we've got going on in the business, and it's working. You know, the cows are producing well, the disease incidence is low, you know, the milk quality is high, again, just because the robots are doing such a good job. So yeah, it's just, the whole system works really, really well. And technology, you know, technology's always been superseded, and the great thing about these is you can just keep updating them. When we first started, the robot would go on its course and it would have to complete the circuit and come back, transfer the information as to which pen's lowest on feed, and then start loading for it. Now, one of the upgrades since we started is it can go out, and if it gets at a certain way down the shed, it can divert across if it knows that those pens need feeding, come immediately back, start loading to feed them up before it then carries on with the rest of the route. So it's a continuous cycle of continuously being pushed up, continuously being monitored.
So taking out the infrastructure side, the building alone, to put in our vector system, when we put it in, which was November 2021, the vector was on par with a tractor and a feeder wagon to feed our number of livestock. So for us, it was probably a no-brainer. We just felt that it was the right thing for our business to go forward, you know, labour pressures. But now, to be fair, it's not just labour pressures, it's actually feeding the cattle to a standard,
yes,
an acceptable standard, and the Lely's surpassed that standard. And even if we were doing it dedicated, you know, between myself and Rich, truthfully, I don't think we could have done it anything like as good and consistent as the vector feeds.
You know, and when you look at the value of a feeder wagon that is depreciating the moment it comes onto your farm, and the size that we would have been looking for, tandem axle, you know, sort of high 20s cubic metre, the second-hand value that
stainless
just
steel,
drops
tandem
off.
axle,
Exactly,
steering
yeah.
axle.
Whereas, you know, these are stainless steel. Whereas, as I say, these are just endless. You can replace the tubs, you replace the batteries, replace everything on it. You just continuously rebuild it, and you've got a new machine.
And the best bit, we produce our own electricity from a sustainable source of FYM, and the product we have, the byproduct we have from the AD plant, gives us the fertiliser to fertilise the farm at a much less cost. It's better on the environment. It's just an all-round win-win.
And the way we've got it set up, so we're piping the slurry directly from the tank in front of the dairy into the AD, so there is a degree we're cutting down on methane production as well. So the only flaw that I would say, I think, is the tracking system at the moment. We've got any concrete we've put down since having the vector, we've countersunk all the steel strips that it runs on. So the way it works is anywhere it's in an open space, it will follow a steel strip on the floor. The moment it gets to our sheds and a feed barrier, it uses ultrasonics, so it doesn't need a strip there, which is great. But bucket brushing the yard, you have to be very careful not to catch the strips. As I say, any new concrete is countersunk, and we will cut in the steel strips. That would be probably a flaw in the system, if you like. The rest of it's just human error, I think.
Yeah, human error. I mean, look, it's only as good as the ingredients we put in the kitchen, which is no different to anything else. It's susceptible. The flaw for us, truthfully, is power cuts, which we can't control, and then because of the way the system works, it's little and often. If you have a power cut that you have no control over, all of a sudden you could potentially have 500 hungry cattle. But truthfully, would that be any worse than having a PTO shaft or a gearbox going down on your feeder wagon?
Absolutely.
You've got to mend it in the same period of time. So,
or use your loader to feed them, whatever you make do. And I think when you look at the amount of time that it gives us, the rest of the time, and what it allows us to do, be off. Even the management in the mornings, I think, is a good example. Before we've got 2 holdings, I would look after the other holding, and we've got another AD plant that we looked after. So Pete would primarily do the cattle down here. So one man feeding our 800 animals through here in the sheds over winter. By the time he's shut gates back, scraped down, bedded down and fed, you'd be up to probably 10 o'clock in the morning. And then you've got to do your rounds looking through the pens. Now it takes all the pressure off, and you've got more time to wander through the cattle and look for problems. So I think
it allows you more time with your stock because you're not feeding them. But obviously we have to fill the kitchen. For us, we could set the kitchen up so we feed it once a week. I think it probably takes about 4 hours a week when we're actually at full capacity to look after the kitchen, to cut the sheets back, to keep the kitchen clean and tidy, and to keep it serviceable and full. Which, truthfully, I don't think is very long against filling a mixer wagon.
No. Yeah, our initial thoughts when we looked at the system and you watched how long it took to load a tub, you think, well, we could have loaded a feeder wagon by now. The difference being is we're not doing it. It's doing it itself 24 hours a day, whether you're here, not here, asleep or awake.
Yeah, while we're talking to you guys, the cattle are being fed and the silage are being pushed up.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like that. We couldn't, if it was...
And the accuracy is pretty impressive, really, when you look at the mixing. And not only that, it's, you completely tailor it to how long it mixes for, what ingredients it puts in when. So as a typical example, if we're feeding the fattening animals and they're on silage, maize, a little bit of straw, blend, we can also add water in there, minerals, you'll put a little bit of silage, a little grass silage, a little bit of maize, a little bit of blend, so it's just building that ration up. Then you can set it to mix for a certain amount of time, won't get over mixed or under mixed because you change the parameters constantly.
We're quite fortunate that our buildings suit the vector system. Not everybody's unit would suit the vector system, and I think that's possibly where our farm would stand out. It's quite a modern farm, and the vector just fitted perfectly into our system. If you've got a lot of older buildings that you had to make work, I don't know whether it would work for you. I can't comment about that because we've not got it. We're just fortunate that we've got a system that it works in.
Yeah, it was one of the influencing decisions as to where we put the dairy. We wanted to maximise use of the robots, and we'd looked at putting it all around the farm, and we ended up just there for several other reasons, but the fact that it was just so easy to put a route in for the feeding robots.
You've got to be careful here because like you said, we sound like a promotion for Lely, and unfortunately there's nothing else to compare it to because there's not a system like that. There's plenty of systems. We went to look at a feeding system that was a hopper feeding system, but truthfully, you're going to load a hopper with a loader. You're not cutting it out in blocks and putting it in there in a block. You're just dumping it in there. Instantly, you've got air ingress. You've got a degrading of your silage, of your forage, and if that chain and slat system went down, there's only one way that's coming out of there. Whereas at least this is everything's workable.
That's the other thing. I know, another part of the sales pitch. It's just great management on your clamps. We use a block cutter to cut out. We can have maize in there in the middle of summer that will last for 2-3 days, no problem at all, without warming up. We never have a problem in the winter, and it allows us to manage our clamp. If we choose to, we can cut the entire top of the face back. We've never got sheets that are cut back beyond the silage, and on a year like this when we've had so much rainfall, the ingress of water coming off the sheets, going in there, dragging oxygen in, you're almost fighting your way back through the clamp, losing your quality. And we can eliminate that just because we put it into the kitchen.
And there is an element that that some nights that it'll ring you, and you think to yourself, if I'd have fed those cows this morning, then they'd have been fed all day long. But is that right? That is just because of my perception of how I want my evening to go without an interference from a robot ringing me because something's gone wrong. But it's not the right thing for the animal. It's not the right thing. And if it's not the right thing for the animal, it's not the right thing for our business, because it has a detrimental effect at some point on the growth of the animal. So now we are feeding them to our full potential. And we possibly weren't doing that before. We thought we were, but I suspect we probably weren't. And the more you use it, I think people of a younger generation would be probably better than we are, because they're probably more adept with the technology that's here. It's taken us probably a while to get to adapt to it, but now we've got it. I wouldn't want to be without it. I went to our nutritionist, we had a meeting this morning, and said, can I generically feed every animal on this farm with the same mix? He said, yeah, you can, but why would you want to? I said, because my time's the most valuable thing here. I want the biggest mixer wagon to feed those cows as fast and efficient as I can and put the job to bed so I can go and do something else. And he said, yeah, we can do that, but it won't be the right thing for the animal.
You know, we've got lots to go forward. We can improve our herd, we can improve the genetics. You know, in there we can improve our milk speed, our total yield, you know, how well we do our calves, getting better growth rates, the same for the sucklers, growing better grass, you know, maybe running more stock per hectare. It's endless. It's endless which part of the business you look at and you can channel your efforts into and try and improve it. You know, you could turn around and say that it will fail miserably, but at least we tried, you know, and as long as we don't lose money at doing it, then yeah, we've had a good time. It pushes you on, and it's good for the staff to see that we're progressing forward. You know, they can get their teeth into something.
We don't have staff, we have help.
Well, exactly, yeah. And we do, you know, it is like a big family, and it should be enjoyable. It shouldn't be just a chore. There's plenty of times where it is bloody hard work, but on the same token, you should look forward to coming to work, you know, and seeing what the next challenge is, what the next thing you can do, whatever that might be.
Look, the reason we went into milking is because we bought another 100 acres of land, and we felt that we wanted to earn an income from it, a regular income that we knew was going to be there going forward to service the loan that we borrowed for the land. And we're farmers, that's where our heart is, that's where our passion is, and we've been, I dare I say, successful in doing what we've done over the years. We talked about taking the sucklers to 500 cows. We felt that wouldn't probably fit into the business as well, because it would be more of a full-time job.
Yeah, it just wouldn't gel together. We'd lose the efficiencies that we'd created along the line.
Labour units would probably be the key there. So then we looked at we looked at glamping pods and that type of thing, but we didn't feel that the income would be as consistent as we would want. It would be very seasonal. We probably wouldn't be good at looking after people. We're good at farming. We enjoy farming. That's what we wanted to do. So we looked at the dairy, and we joked about it for a long, long time, truthfully. But we sort of thought, well, we'd do a feasibility of it, and we did. And as Rich said, complementing the feeding system made sense to look at the Lely astronaut system. And it just sort of clicked together, and it just worked. We wanted everything to be as automated as possible, knowing that our biggest problem was time. It's the one thing we're short of, and so we wanted everything in place to turn around and maximise the use of our time and the efficiency.
And future-proof it for ourselves. Well, the only thing we didn't put on was the sprayers for the feet, but we put in an automatic raceway that will dump itself, clean itself out and redo it, counting the cows through. That's working really well for us too. And I guess then to us it made sense having everything in-house with the Vector. They could offer the scraping robots that we wanted. We put the Discovery collectors in, predominantly though, because they did the most amount of legwork.
Like it sounds like all we are is Lely, 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 Lely. But we've got what we've got. They're the only ones on the market that would probably be able to put a package together like we've got.
I still wouldn't change any of them. I wouldn't put gears in, I wouldn't put forwards in, and I wouldn't get rid of the Vectors at all.
And the system, and to be fair, and I can't really explain, it's so surreal. You're walking about doing your daily job, whether you're checking cows or calves, and a robot will just come past you. You'll walk around the corner and there'll be a feeding robot just going past you, and he's just merrily off, trotting around the yard, doing his job. And he never complains, he never whines, he doesn't like it not having electricity, but other than that, he just gets on with his job.
Doesn't
and
even
you leave
have
him
to come
to
to
it.
the pub when we go.
No, absolutely.
No, all he wants to do is feed cows and push up silage.
Yeah,
and I think
he's the perfect employee.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, this is the third winter, and I would say you still don't get used to it, which is great. It's
Yeah, it is,
part of the
absolutely.
excitement of what we do,
Yep.
and everything. Yeah, so. But yeah, look, we're quite fortunate. We've got a good team of people around us. We have good support from our wives.
100%,
and
yep.
I think all of that, to make this thing work, you've got to be 100% committed. But now, truthfully, we've probably got to a point in our careers in the fact that the farming is as important as the contracting and the industry. Truthfully, we should be shouting about our industry. We want the next generation to come into it. There's not enough youth coming into it. And truthfully, look, the robots. Hopefully, look, at worst case scenario, they're going to make farming more attractive to the next generation and come into it for all the different reasons that maybe we would have gone into it. And I don't know how we've stumbled across the way we are as a business, but I feel very fortunate and very blessed to be part of the agricultural industry. I love it, and I can't get my fill of agriculture. I think it's the best industry to be in. So to me, if this brings on the next generation of farmers and contractors as a circular business, happy days.
Walking home late at night, maybe 2:30. A little drunk, but I'm alright, 'cause I've been hanging with you, and it feels like love. Tell me if I'm wrong, 'cause it